There is a moment that happens every single morning in almost every home on this planet that most people don't even notice. A moment that lasts less than 30 seconds. And yet, that one tiny moment is quietly responsible for sending thousands of people into emergency rooms every single day, and some of them never come back home. A cardiologist who has spent over 20 years standing beside hospital beds, watching monitors flatline, watching families collapse in waiting rooms, once said something that should be written on every bedroom wall in the world. He said, "The most dangerous 30 seconds of a person's entire day is not during exercise, not during an argument, not during a stressful meeting. It is the very first 30 seconds after you open your eyes in the morning." Just sit with that for a second. The most dangerous 30 seconds of your life happen before you have even had your first sip of water, before you have even stood up, before the world has even fully woken up around you. And the terrifying part is that almost everyone on earth is making this mistake right now, this very morning, without even knowing it, because it feels so normal, so harmless, so ordinary that nobody ever stops to question it. But your heart questions it every single day, and sometimes it pays the price in silence until one morning it simply cannot take it anymore. Picture a man named Robert, 48 years old, a loving husband, a father of 2 teenage daughters, a man who jogged 3 times a week, who never smoked, who ate fairly healthy, who had no major warning signs on paper. One Tuesday morning, his alarm rang at 6:15. He woke up, and like millions of people do every single day, he reached for his phone before his feet even touched the floor. He sat up fast, swung his legs over the bed, and stood up almost instantly to silence the alarm and check his messages. 30 seconds. That is all it took. His wife heard a thud from the bathroom a few minutes later. By the time the ambulance arrived, it was already too late. Robert had suffered a massive heart attack, and doctors later explained that this kind of sudden cardiac event in the early morning hours is shockingly common, far more common than most people realize. And very often it is connected to exactly what Robert did in those first 30 seconds of his day. This is not a rare freak accident. This is a pattern that doctors and researchers have been studying for decades. And what they have found is both fascinating and frightening. Our bodies are not designed to go from deep sleep to sudden, fast movement in an instant. While we sleep, our heart rate slows down, our blood pressure drops, our blood becomes naturally thicker and stickier to prevent excessive bleeding from any small internal injuries, and our entire nervous system settles into a slow, calm rhythm. This is the body's way of resting, repairing, and protecting itself overnight. But the moment we wake up, something dramatic happens inside us, something most people have never even heard of, called the cortisol awakening response. Within minutes of waking, your body releases a surge of cortisol and adrenaline, stress hormones that are meant to gently prepare you for the day ahead, to give you energy, alertness, and focus. This surge naturally raises your blood pressure and increases your heart rate. It is completely normal, and on its own, it is not dangerous. The danger comes when you combine that natural hormonal surge with a sudden, forceful, fast physical movement, like jumping out of bed and standing up in one quick motion. This combination creates what doctors call a perfect storm inside your cardiovascular system, a sudden spike in blood pressure, a rapid increase in heart rate, and thicker blood trying to move quickly through your arteries, all happening at the exact same time your heart is at its most vulnerable point of the entire day. This is exactly why cardiologists around the world refer to the early morning hours, roughly between 6 and 10 in the morning, as the danger zone, the witching hour for the heart. Statistically, heart attacks and strokes occur far more frequently during this window than at any other time of day. Some studies suggest the risk can be up to 40% higher in these morning hours compared to other times. Think about that for a moment. Almost half of all serious cardiac events are clustering around the very hours when people are getting ready for work, making breakfast, rushing kids to school, checking emails, and yes, jumping out of bed and grabbing their phones. Your heart, in those first few minutes of consciousness, is essentially walking a tightrope, balancing rising hormones, rising blood pressure, and changing blood flow, and one sudden jolt of movement can be enough to push it off that tightrope entirely, especially if there is already some hidden vulnerability inside the arteries, like a small buildup of plaque that nobody knew was there. And this is the part that should genuinely shake you, because heart disease very often gives no warning at all. Plaque can build up silently inside artery walls for years, sometimes decades, without a single symptom. A person can pass every routine checkup, feel completely fine, run, lift weights, eat reasonably well, and still be walking around with a ticking time bomb inside their chest, because cholesterol deposits don't always show up as chest pain or shortness of breath until the moment they rupture. And what makes plaque rupture more likely? Sudden spikes in blood pressure, sudden surges in stress hormones, sudden physical strain on a body that just transitioned from deep rest to upright movement in a matter of seconds. That 30-second mistake of jumping straight out of bed is not just uncomfortable or mildly risky. For someone with hidden cardiovascular vulnerability, it can be the spark that ignites a catastrophe. Now, you might be thinking, this sounds terrifying, but surely my body can handle something as simple as standing up in the morning. And for most healthy people, most of the time, yes, it can. But here is the deeper truth that cardiologists desperately want more people to understand. Your cardiovascular risk is not just about that 30 seconds in isolation. It is about how many other risk factors are quietly stacking up behind it. High blood pressure that has never been properly controlled, cholesterol levels that have crept up year after year, chronic stress that never gets released, poor sleep quality that prevents your body from fully calming down overnight, a sedentary lifestyle that weakens the heart's resilience, smoking, even occasional smoking, that damages artery walls, excess weight around the abdomen that increases inflammation throughout the body, diabetes or prediabetes that silently damages blood vessels over time. Each one of these factors on its own might seem manageable, but together they create a heart that is far less able to handle that morning surge safely, a heart that is one sudden jolt away from disaster. And the cruel irony is that so many people who are at the highest risk feel completely fine because the human body is remarkably good at compensating right up until the moment it simply cannot compensate anymore. So let's talk about what your heart actually wants from you in those first crucial minutes after waking, because this is where everything changes. This is where you take back control. The single most powerful thing you can do is give your body time. Doctors recommend lying still for at least 60 to 90 seconds after you first open your eyes, simply breathing, letting your nervous system gently catch up with consciousness instead of forcing it into a sudden sprint. During those quiet seconds, take slow, deep breaths in through your nose, out through your mouth, allowing your heart rate to rise gradually rather than spiking abruptly. This single habit alone, something that costs you absolutely nothing and takes less time than scrolling through one social media notification, can dramatically reduce the cardiovascular shock that your body experiences every single morning. After those calm breathing moments, instead of leaping out of bed, sit up slowly. Let your body adjust to being upright while you are still seated on the edge of the bed for another 20 to 30 seconds. This brief pause allows your blood pressure to stabilize as gravity begins pulling blood downward in your body, preventing that dangerous combination of hormonal surge and sudden positional change happening all at once. Only after this gentle transition should you actually stand up, and even then, doctors recommend standing up slowly rather than springing upward. This protects not only your heart, but also your brain, because sudden standing can cause a rapid drop in blood flow to the brain, leading to dizziness, lightheadedness, and in some cases, fainting, which is especially dangerous for older adults who may fall and injure themselves severely. And then comes the next piece of this puzzle, something so simple yet so overlooked: hydration. While you sleep for 7 or 8 hours, your body loses a significant amount of water through breathing and through the skin, and you wake up in a mildly dehydrated state every single morning. Dehydration makes your blood naturally thicker, which puts additional strain on your heart as it works harder to pump that thicker blood through your arteries. This is precisely why cardiologists encourage people to drink a full glass of water immediately after those breathing and sitting moments, before coffee, before anything else. This simple glass of water helps thin the blood slightly, supports healthy circulation, and gives your cardiovascular system a much gentler start to the day. It sounds almost too simple to matter, and yet doctors who have studied morning cardiac events repeatedly emphasize that this one small habit, costing seconds of your time, can meaningfully reduce strain on a heart that is already navigating a vulnerable hormonal window. Now let's talk about something that has quietly become one of the most dangerous additions to the modern morning routine, and that is reaching for your phone the very instant you wake up. Think about what actually happens when you do this. Your eyes, still adjusting to being open, are suddenly flooded with bright light. Your brain, still in a partially relaxed state, is suddenly bombarded with notifications, emails, news headlines, messages, sometimes even distressing or stressful information, all within seconds of regaining consciousness. This creates an additional, unnecessary spike in cortisol and adrenaline on top of the natural cortisol awakening response your body is already experiencing. You are essentially stacking a second stress surge directly on top of the first one, asking your heart to handle two waves of stress hormones almost simultaneously, all before you have even had a chance to physically stabilize your blood pressure through slow movement. Many cardiologists now strongly advise people to avoid checking their phones for at least the first 10 to 15 minutes after waking, not because of some vague wellness trend, but because of very real, measurable cardiovascular consequences. Give your mind a few quiet minutes before the digital world comes rushing in, because those quiet minutes are doing far more for your heart than you might ever have imagined. Beyond these morning rituals, there is a bigger picture that cannot be ignored, because protecting your heart is not only about those crucial 30 seconds, it is about the lifestyle you build around them, day after day, year after year. Movement matters profoundly. Regular physical activity, even something as simple as a brisk 30-minute walk most days of the week, strengthens your heart muscle, improves circulation, helps regulate blood pressure, and builds resilience against sudden cardiovascular stress. You do not need to become an athlete. You simply need to move consistently, because a heart that moves regularly throughout life becomes a heart that is far better equipped to handle sudden demands, including that vulnerable morning window. Nutrition plays an equally powerful role in this story. A heart that is constantly bombarded with excessive salt, processed sugars, trans fats, and ultra-processed foods becomes a heart burdened with inflammation, rising cholesterol, and increasingly stiff, narrowed arteries over time. On the other hand, a heart nourished with vegetables, fruits, whole grains, healthy fats like olive oil and nuts, lean proteins, and fiber-rich foods becomes a heart with cleaner arteries, better blood flow, and significantly lower long-term risk. Every single meal is essentially a vote for or against your future cardiovascular health. And while one indulgent meal will not destroy you, a lifetime pattern of poor nutrition absolutely can quietly set the stage for tragedy. Sleep quality deserves just as much attention as diet and exercise, because poor sleep does not just leave you tired, it actively damages your cardiovascular system over time. Chronic poor sleep raises blood pressure, increases inflammation throughout the body, disrupts hormone regulation, and has been directly linked to higher rates of heart attack and stroke. Prioritizing 7 to 9 hours of consistent quality sleep is not a luxury. It is one of the most powerful, completely free forms of heart protection available to every single person, and yet it remains one of the most neglected. Chronic stress is another silent destroyer that deserves serious attention, because stress that never gets released does not simply disappear. It accumulates inside your body, keeping cortisol and adrenaline elevated far beyond their healthy, intended purpose. Over months and years, this chronic elevation contributes to high blood pressure, arterial damage, and significantly increased cardiovascular risk. Finding genuine outlets for stress, whether through deep breathing practices, meditation, time in nature, meaningful conversations with loved ones, or simply learning to set healthier boundaries in your daily life, is not a soft, optional add-on to heart health. It is a core pillar of it. And then there are the warning signs, the symptoms that so many people tragically ignore or misinterpret until it is far too late. A heart attack does not always look like the dramatic chest-clutching collapse so often shown in movies. Sometimes it is a persistent pressure or tightness in the chest that feels like a heavy weight sitting there. Sometimes it is pain that spreads into the arm, the jaw, the neck, or the back. Sometimes it is unexplained shortness of breath, breaking out into a cold sweat for no clear reason, sudden nausea, lightheadedness, or an overwhelming, unfamiliar sense of fatigue. Women in particular often experience subtler symptoms, sometimes mistaking serious cardiac distress for indigestion, anxiety, or simple exhaustion. This is precisely why doctors urge everyone never to ignore unusual symptoms, especially during those early morning hours when cardiovascular risk is already naturally elevated. If something feels wrong, even slightly wrong, seeking medical attention immediately is never an overreaction. It is potentially the difference between life and death. Regular checkups matter more than people often realize because blood pressure, cholesterol levels, and blood sugar can all rise silently for years without any noticeable symptoms whatsoever. Knowing your numbers, truly knowing them, not guessing, not assuming you are fine because you feel fine, is one of the most powerful tools you have to protect your future. High blood pressure in particular has earned its nickname as the silent killer for very good reason, because it can quietly damage arteries for decades while a person feels completely normal, right up until the moment it doesn't feel normal anymore. Getting your blood pressure checked regularly, especially if you have any family history of heart disease, is not something to postpone until next year. It is something to prioritize starting today. Family history deserves honest acknowledgement too, because while you cannot change your genetics, understanding your family's cardiovascular history allows you and your doctor to take proactive, personalized steps rather than reactive ones after a crisis has already occurred. If heart disease runs in your family, that is not a death sentence. It is simply information, powerful information that should inspire greater vigilance, earlier screening, and more committed lifestyle choices rather than fear or denial. Now think back to Robert for a moment, the man whose story opened everything we have talked about today. His tragedy was not caused by some rare, exotic disease that no one could have predicted or prevented. It was caused by an accumulation of small, everyday choices, some sudden, sharp morning movements repeated for years, combined with stress he never fully addressed, sleep he never fully prioritized, and warning signs his body may have been quietly sending that he simply never noticed or never took seriously enough. His story is heartbreaking precisely because it was so preventable, and that is exactly why it needs to be told, not to frighten you into paralysis, but to wake you up, gently, intentionally, the same way your body deserves to wake up every single morning from now on. Imagine, just for a moment, what your life could look like if you simply changed those first 30 seconds of every single day. Instead of jolting upright in panic to silence an alarm, imagine lying still for a minute, breathing slowly, feeling genuinely grateful to be alive for one more day. Imagine sitting up gently, giving your body the respect of a slow, intentional transition rather than treating it like a machine that must instantly switch on. Imagine drinking a full glass of water before anything else touches your lips, giving your blood, your heart, your entire circulatory system a gentle, supportive start rather than a shock. Imagine leaving your phone untouched for those first precious minutes, allowing your mind and your nervous system to fully arrive in the day before the noise of the world comes rushing in. These changes cost you nothing financially. They cost you only a few extra minutes that you already have, hidden inside a routine you have simply never questioned before today. Your heart works for you tirelessly, beating somewhere around 100,000 times every single day, completely without your conscious effort, completely without complaint, asking for almost nothing in return except basic care and respect. It does not ask for perfection. It does not ask for extreme diets or punishing workout regimens. It simply asks you to stop treating your mornings like a race against the clock and start treating them like the most important 30 seconds of protection you can give yourself every single day for the rest of your life. The habits you build starting tomorrow morning, starting the very next time your alarm rings, could be the quiet, invisible difference between a long, vibrant life filled with the people you love and a sudden, devastating loss that leaves everyone around you asking the same haunting question that so many grieving families ask in hospital hallways every single day. Why didn't we know? Why didn't someone tell us sooner? Today someone told you. Today, you know. And knowledge that is never used to change behavior is simply information that fades away by tomorrow. But knowledge that is acted upon, even in something as small as those first 30 seconds after waking, has the power to add years, decades, entire chapters of life that would otherwise have been lost. Your heart has carried you through every single morning you have ever lived. Tomorrow morning, when that alarm rings, give it the 30 seconds of gentleness it has always deserved and never knew how to ask for. Take care of your heart, because it is the only one you will ever have, and it has never once, not for a single beat, stopped fighting for you.